My pleasure to have you today, my friends. Some men, they don't cry when they're broken. They slam doors. They snap at their kids. They become strangers in their own homes. And here is the brutal truth that nobody tells you.
Right.
By the time you realize what's truly happening, you haven't just lost yourself. You've already lost something essential in your relationships that will take extraordinary effort, time, and pain to rebuild. Welcome to Enchanted Life Inside. Today, we're taking a deep, almost uncomfortably close look at the source material you shared with us. We're going to be focusing on this silent and I think often misdiagnosed crisis that's buried just beneath the surface of modern masculinity.
Right. We're really dissecting the painful reality of what happens when emotional suppression stops being a choice and becomes a survival mechanism.
And how that mechanism tragically turns on the very person it was supposed to protect.
Exactly. The discussion today is really centered on a difficult psychological paradox. Why does male depression so frequently wear what we're calling the mask of anger?
Right, that's the central question.
We're going to explore how social conditioning creates this deadly disguise and, maybe more importantly, what the irrefutable clinical facts tell us about the high cost of maintaining it.
It seems like for a lot of men, the path to healing is blocked by the very identity they were taught was necessary for success.
It is. The mask becomes the identity.
So let's get into the anatomy of that mask. Let's start with the story of Mark. He's this archetype we saw again and again in the research.
Right, Mark. On the surface, he's everything he's supposed to be. He's successful, he's respected, outwardly very competent.
And our story begins with him in the morning. He's standing in the mirror, splashing cold water on his face, just staring at his reflection.
And what does he see? He sees the strong jawline, but he also sees the tired, slightly bloodshot eyes.
He sees the image of a man who built a life, a career, a family, a man who's supposed to be whole.
That image, that's really the genesis of the entire mask, isn't it?
It is. Because his internal monologue it's just this daily exercise in self-deception.
He feels this profound emptiness, this lack of joy, this constant internal static, and he just dismisses it all.
He tells himself it's just stress from work.
Of course, just stress. It's the mandatory, non-negotiable daily affirmation of control. I am in control, always.
It's like this fortress he's built.
It is, and it's not just to keep the world out. I think specifically, it's to keep the terrifying vulnerability of his own sadness locked deep inside.
But the sources show us that the problem isn't that this internal reality stays hidden. It can't.
Yeah.
It leaks out.
It leaks out in the only emotionally permissible way society has taught him.
Through these small fissures of rage and impatience.
Exactly. The insidious first signs, that white-knuckle grip on the steering wheel in traffic.
Snapping at his wife, Sarah, for something as small as dishes left in the sink.
Or slamming cabinet doors with just unnecessary force.
These aren't just bad habits, are they?
No, not at all. You have to see them for what they are.
Yeah.
Small, violent explosions of unprocessed internal distress.
Which brings us to a really crucial point in the research, a societal critique. What is the single worst thing society teaches men about emotions?
It's a brutal and simple lesson, really. And it is that sadness is weakness, sadness is feminine, sadness is an indulgence that will cost you money and status.
But anger.
But anger. Anger is functional, anger is seen as strength, anger is authority.
It's almost like a psychological transaction then. When the real weight of depression, that heavy cloak of emptiness and exhaustion becomes too much to bear.
The brain scrambles. It scrambles for an acceptable substitute. And anger becomes the psychological permission structure.
It lets the man feel something aggressive and external.
So he can avoid the internal, messy, vulnerable confrontation with his own hopelessness. He gets to feel powerful for a moment instead of feeling helpless.
And this is why that anger mask is so deadly. It's so effective at perpetuating the illness itself.
And the statistics, they absolutely validate this tragic conditioning. Our sources confirm that men are statistically far less likely than women to recognize what's happening.
Or to talk about it?
Or to seek professional treatment for depression, certainly. They're trapped in this denial loop. They prefer the language of stress, burnout, or physical exhaustion.
Anything but the clinical reality of a mood disorder.
Because to accept depression in that conditioned mindset is to admit failure, to admit you've lost control.
Which, ironically, is exactly what has happened. The illness has taken control.
Precisely.
In this story, it always reaches a point where it can't be contained anymore. A climax. A moment where the external consequences of the mask they pierce right through that armor of denial.
For Mark, this happened during a crucial client call, a moment where he needed to project maximum performance and control.
And that's when Jamie, his 8-year-old son, bursts into the home office.
Right. He's crying, tears are streaming down his face because his science project, something he's worked on for weeks, broke right before the deadline.
It's a small crisis, a normal family moment.
But it hits Mark's system when his capacity for empathy is at 0 and his performance anxiety is at 100.
And the reaction, as the sources captured it, it's disproportionate. It's devastating.
He doesn't just sigh or get frustrated. He reacts with instant, visceral rage.
He barks at him loudly. "What did I tell you about interrupting me when I'm working?"
Yeah.
Just cutting the child off completely.
The volume, the intensity, the sheer focus of that aggression aimed at an 8-year-old over some cardboard and glue.
And here's the part that is just agonizing. The core memory that triggers the first flicker of self-awareness for him.
A devastating result. The son. He flinches.
He flinches, not from a physical blow, but a psychological one, a recoil, as if he expected to be struck.
And the sources note Mark's shattering realization in that moment. He hadn't just lost his temper, he realized, quote, something in our relationship had cracked too.
The child learned right there, in that instant, that Dad was fundamentally unsafe when he was vulnerable.
And what makes this so profound, so devastatingly insightful, is the involuntary, the vulnerability loop that opens up inside Mark himself.
He doesn't just see Jamie flinching.
No, he sees himself. He sees 8-year-old Mark. He sees his own father, maybe not a physically abusive man, but a perpetually critical one, towering over him with that same judgmental voice.
"Why are you crying? Can't you handle anything?"
It just illustrates the chilling efficiency of intergenerational trauma, the pain that Mark was too afraid to confront from his own childhood. It didn't just disappear.
It didn't heal.
It transformed into a behavioral blueprint, a toxic script that he passed directly to his son.
So the unresolved pain of the father becomes the defining emotional environment of the son.
The mask of anger doesn't just hurt the wearer, it actively scars the legacy. It's a cycle.
And when men are living behind this mask, this state of chronic agitation and emptiness, what do? Their instinct is to self-correct.
Right, but using methods that don't require emotional exposure or vulnerability, they look for external, quick-fix solutions.
Which the source material correctly identifies as just accelerants for the underlying crisis.
Absolutely, and the most dangerous and prevalent route is substance use.
Men turning to alcohol or prescription drugs or even illicit substances.
And it's important to understand why. This isn't about seeking pleasure, it is about silencing the internal static.
I think the quote from Patrick, the retired sergeant in the material, was so stark, so honest.
It was. I drink and I tried to numb my head, but you have to deal with it. It doesn't just go away.
You can't just numb it away.
You can't, because alcohol is a powerful depressant. It provides kind of temporary emotional amnesty, sure, but it significantly deepens the chemical imbalance that caused the depression in the first place.
So it leads to a much steeper crash the next morning.
And that cycle of numbing and crashing, it quickly becomes the illness itself.
And beyond the chemical solutions, there are the behavioral ones.
Behavioral substitutes, yes. We see men engaging in excessive work, which is often framed as dedication or grind culture.
Or high-risk activities, gambling, compulsive behaviors.
Anything to create distance from the true internal pain. Anything to not feel. They're substituting meaningful, slow engagement with chaotic, immediate intensity.
And this ties directly to something you mentioned before we started, this idea of cheap dopamine hits.
Exactly. Low-value, high-frequency gratification. Think about endless social media scrolling, binge-watching shows, or deep immersion in competitive online gaming.
They provide instant, low-effort rewards.
But that's the crucial psychological problem. These quick hits distract from the slow, difficult, sustained work that's required for healing and for sustainable mental health.
Real earned victory. I mean, finishing a complex task, achieving a fitness goal, having a genuine emotional connection with someone. That all takes work.
It requires the prefrontal cortex to function correctly and invest effort. But the depressed brain, it's always seeking the path of least resistance. So it substitutes true achievement with endless, low-effort stimulation.
The irony is just, it's so profound and cruel.
It is. These quick fixes are pursued under the pretense of restoring control or excitement, but they leave the man more drained, more isolated, and his brain less capable of tackling the real problem.
So the reliance on instant gratification actively starves the neural pathways needed for actual happiness, for resilience.
That's it, in a nutshell.
So we have to talk about decrypting the symptoms. We need to challenge this cultural myth of what depression even looks like.
We really do. We're all conditioned to picture someone tearful, withdrawn, maybe languishing in bed.
Right. But clinically, that's not the whole picture. A diagnosis of major depressive disorder, it requires at least 5 symptoms for a 2-week period, and it has to impact the man's ability to function.
And this is where the source material highlights that critical gender difference in how symptoms are expressed. While women are often culturally permitted, even encouraged, to express classic sadness.
Men often meet the clinical criteria through these seemingly non-depressive symptoms.
Exactly. Namely, anger, extreme irritability, aggressiveness, or risky behavior.
So a man might never say he feels sad or empty.
He might never even use those words, but he might report feeling intensely anxious, restless, or constantly on the edge.
And that's a clinical state, isn't it?
It is. It's known as psychomotor agitation. This constant simmering intensity, if it's persistent, it meets the mood criteria for depression. He's leading with the outward defense mechanism. He thinks he's fighting the world when in fact he's just expressing an internal collapse.
And if we look at the consequences of that, of that disguise, the severity is just undeniable.
It's grim. The data consistently shows that while women are more likely to attempt suicide, often using methods that allow for intervention, men are tragically far more likely to die by suicide.
And that difference in lethality, it's deeply linked to this anger mask.
It is. When a man reaches a crisis point, the suppressed intensity of the illness often correlates with the speed and the finality of the method chosen.
The same conditioning that forbids sadness and encourages aggression
tragically steers him toward terminal decisiveness when he decides the pain is intolerable. It's the end point of a lifetime of keeping everything locked down.
So it's vital for anyone listening, especially if you're observing a loved one. If a man is showing an abrupt, uncharacteristic increase in irritability, aggression, or a sudden dramatic shift towards reckless, high-risk behavior,
that is not just a temper problem or a character flaw.
It's a siren. It's a siren blaring for clinical depression. It's the sadness wearing camouflage.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And this mask of anger is so psychologically robust that the body itself starts to translate the emotional pain into physical symptoms.
Yes, men are conditioned to seek validation through tangible evidence. If they feel bad, it must be physical. So chronic mental health distress starts to manifest as real physical complaints.
We see this pattern so clearly in the data from the Office of Mental Health. Men are far more likely to go see their primary care physician, or a cardiologist,
or a gastroenterologist. They'll talk about physical ailments long before they'd ever see a mental health specialist.
They present with a racing heart, a chronic tightening in the chest, ongoing tension headaches,
severe digestive issues, back pain that has no clear explanation from an injury.
And why does this happen? What's the mechanism there?
Well, when the brain is constantly in a state of agitation or perceived threat, which is what persistent anxiety and irritability trigger, it floods the system with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly, but it's constantly on, and that's exhausting and inflammatory. The constant stress physically wears down the body. It genuinely makes the patient sick.
So when a man goes to the doctor, he has a valid, tangible complaint. I have heartburn every night, or my chest feels heavy.
They're real symptoms, but the root cause is so often the unaddressed emotional distress.
The story of Jimmy, the firefighter, from the source material, really highlights this perfectly.
It does. He described his functional decline. He said, "My daily routine was shot. I didn't have the energy to do anything. I got up because the dog had to be walked."
He said the day would go by and I didn't know where it went.
He wasn't crying. He was exhausted. He wasn't sad. In his own words, he was functionally diminished.
And that functional decay just spirals into deeper depression.
It does, because the inability to meet responsibilities at work or at home, the complete loss of interest in things you once enjoyed, including sex, it doesn't just accompany depression, it fuels self-recrimination.
He gets angry at himself for being incapable,
which just reinforces the initial cycle of rage and suppression. It's a vicious feedback loop.
So let's pull back the curtain on the actual neuroscience behind this. The Dr. Bennett insights in the material were, well, they were revolutionary for me.
They're crucial. because when the public thinks of depression, they think of an overflow of sadness. But what our sources highlight is that clinical depression is often characterized by the absence of complex emotion.
It's a flatness.
That's a great word for it. When the brain is completely overwhelmed by chronic stress and physiological exhaustion, it can literally go flat. It's a protective mechanism.
And the part of the brain that's responsible for complex thought, for emotional regulation and empathy, the prefrontal cortex.
It's just utterly drained. It's running on empty.
So if that complicated emotional center is offline, where does all the energy go? Because the body is still flooded with stress hormones, right? It's still full of those fight or flight chemicals.
The brain defaults to its lowest cognitive energy setting.
And anger is simple.
Anger is simple. Anger is immediate. It requires minimal processing power. So when the brain is desperate, running on fumes, it converts all that complex, painful input, grief, fear, inadequacy, into the one emotion it can still quickly process and express.
Rage.
Rage, chronic irritability, or defensiveness, yes.
And the brain scan analogy from the material provides such stunning clarity on this.
It does. Dr. Bennett's analysis suggests the amygdala, that's the ancient primitive fear and threat center, is perpetually running the show. It's on high alert. It's scanning the environment for threats.
The misplaced dishes, the slow traffic, the interrupting child.
They're all perceived as threats. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to act as the executive regulator, the part that says, wait, that's just a broken toy, not a lion, is utterly exhausted and offline. It can't intervene.
So the man is essentially operating in a state of chronic, low-grade threat response.
Constantly. And this reframing is it's so profound. The anger wasn't a failure of character or a moral flaw or a simple lack of effort.
It was a functional symptom of neurological exhaustion.
It was the brain misfiring desperately in self-defense, choosing rage because it couldn't afford the complex energy required for grief or empathy.
And recognizing that distinction, that's the first step in removing the immense shame men carry. It's what paves the way for effective treatment.
That armor is thick, but it can be pierced. And usually not by attack, but by a genuine, gentle truth.
For Mark, the catalyst came from his wife, Sarah. It wasn't a demand, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a deeply personal question.
Her intervention was so specific. She didn't list his failures or his angry outbursts. She just asked him a simple question.
When was the last time you laughed?
Right.
Really laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a genuine, free sound that involved your entire body.
And Mark, in that moment, he just had no defense. He searched his memory.
He couldn't find one. He couldn't pinpoint a single unburdened moment of joy. And the realization was just devastating. 3 years of being a ghost in his own life.
He realized he had been emotionally absent even when he was physically present.
And this leads us to a crucial psychological insight from the material. It's about the cognitive barriers to healing.
When we're stuck, we default to that self-blaming question, what's wrong with me?
Right. And that question just locks a man into the identity of the broken, defective failure. It only feels the shame and the anger mask.
The identity shift, the moment of liberation happens when that paralyzing question is replaced by a liberating, compassionate inquiry.
What happened to me? And what do I need to heal?
That reframing is revolutionary. It transforms the man from being the cause of the problem to being the subject of an injury that requires care and attention.
It shifts the focus from moral failure to medical reality.
And it allows the man to stop viewing his depression as a sign of weakness and start viewing it as a wound that demands treatment.
Now, this is obviously a heavy subject, and we want to integrate it into your experience listening to this. So here's an integration point for you. Think back to a moment, maybe it was recent, maybe years ago. When was the moment you realized the emotional mask you wore was actively harming your relationship with your family?
That flicker of deep shame when your child flinched or when your partner retreated emotionally.
That painful truth. That's the starting point. Think about it. And if you feel comfortable, please share your reflection in the comments below. It allows us to build a better understanding of this struggle together.
So once a man has recognized the problem, the next immense barrier is the fear of seeking help. Culturally, it's viewed as surrender.
Which is why this concept of an identity shift has to be applied directly to the idea of treatment itself.
We have to reframe the act. It's not an admission of defeat. It is, in fact, an act of profound strength, discipline, and responsibility.
Especially responsibility to the people he loves and is trying to protect.
And the material puts it perfectly. Warriors don't pretend they're not wounded. They dress the wound so they can keep fighting.
That's such a powerful reframe. It allows the man to claim the heroic role of the wounded warrior healing, rather than remaining the broken man failing.
He's doing the hard work of maintenance required to continue his responsibilities.
What's so fascinating is that the sources consistently show the most difficult part isn't the complex long-term work of therapy.
No, it's the decision to start.
It's making that first phone call, sending that first text to a doctor or therapist. That initial act of courage is often the single greatest barrier.
Once that's done, the structure of treatment itself provides momentum.
And the path is, well, it's not linear, is it? There will be setbacks.
Of course. But it begins with discrete, defined, manageable actions. One consultation, starting therapy, potentially starting medication, and, crucially, repairing the damage done through genuine apology and reconnection.
This momentum relies heavily on what the material calls the small win strategy.
When the mountain of recovery feels overwhelming, you focus on tiny, manageable actions. They're designed to build a sense of daily victory and slowly reset those exhausted dopamine pathways.
And Mark learned to apply this. His biggest small win wasn't some immediate miracle cure.
No, it was a simple, genuine apology to his son, Jamie. He didn't offer an excuse, he just said, "I've been angry lately, Jamie, and you didn't deserve that. That was my problem, and I'm getting help now."
That single powerful action. It didn't cure the depression, but it immediately began the difficult process of rebuilding that damaged trust.
And the quantifiable emotional return on that small win came later. Jamie, feeling safe again, felt comfortable enough to say what he'd been observing.
He said, "Dad, I've been worried about you. You seem lighter now."
That word, lighter, that's the only validation needed. It confirms that the internal shift, the shedding of the mask, is visible and beneficial to the entire family system.
So for any man listening who is contemplating whether this struggle is even worth the effort, we have to present a vivid contrast between the two possible futures.
We have to. It makes the necessity of action ethically urgent.
So let's look at the old path, the path of agitation. If the anger mask remains, the consequences are predictable. They follow a tragic, documented timeline.
The partner, exhausted by the chronic tension, eventually stops trying. The couple morphs into roommates who share a bed. Emotional intimacy is extinguished.
Which leads to loneliness and eventually separation.
And the kids, they learn to walk on perpetual eggshells. They normalize the chaos.
And this is the ethical urgency we have to stress. It's about protecting the children.
If the cycle is unbroken, the son learns that the correct way to deal with overwhelming emotional complexity is to suppress it, convert it to rage, and eventually deal with his own conflict with his fists.
He replicates the aggressive blueprint.
By choosing inaction, the man guarantees the replication of his own pain in the next generation.
Okay, so that's the grim path. But there's the new path, the path of hope. This is Mark's specific, achievable timeline. It shows that transformation is a process, not a sudden event.
It's proof that consistent, small steps lead to radical change. So, week 1, he made the critical, courageous phone call to his doctor. He scheduled the first appointment. That was the primary win.
Week 2, he started therapy. And in one of those early sessions, he finally broke down. He cried for the first time in over a decade.
And that necessary emotional release, it signals the first real crack in the emotional armor. Physiologically, it reduces the immediate pressure cooker effect of suppressed cortisol.
Then, week 4, following medical advice, he began taking an antidepressant. Now, this isn't a magic cure.
Not at all, but it begins to turn down the volume on the constant static in his brain. It allows the prefrontal cortex to start regaining some function. The acute agitation decreases, which makes the hard work of therapy possible.
And then weeks 4 through 12. That's the grind.
That's the grind. The medication is stabilizing, therapy is teaching new habits, things like cognitive behavioral therapy or behavioral activation, and the small wins strategy is being applied daily.
He's learning to tolerate discomfort without defaulting to rage. He's rebuilding trust through consistency, not grand gestures.
And then week 12, the payoff arrives. Sarah recognizes the return of her husband. And her statement wasn't dramatic. It was simple and deeply affirming.
She just said, "There you are, I missed you."
The angry ghost had retreated. The genuine, emotionally available man had returned. This contrast shows that change doesn't require superhuman effort, just consistent, intentional steps over about 3 months.
So that brings us to another integration point. We want to encourage a discussion on solutions, not just the problems. How can we better support men who mistake deep emotional exhaustion and physical aches for simple stress when they're actually signs of clinical depression?
What practical support systems, beyond just traditional therapy, truly resonate with men in that crucial resistance stage? We really want your experience perspective in the comments below.
Now let's get into the specifics of the blueprint for healing. Let's delve deeply into the treatment paths that are documented in the Office of Mental Health material.
Right. Understanding the proven tools available is essential for moving from identification to action.
So let's start with the first one, which is medication.
Antidepressants are a viable and often necessary component of treatment, especially when symptoms are severe or if the depression has a significant biological component. But success requires patience.
And monitoring.
We have to stress that symptoms like sleep disturbances, appetite changes, concentration, they often improve several weeks before the overall mood lifts.
And that lag can be really discouraging.
It can be, which is why routine check-ins with the prescribing doctor are so critical.
And we should also talk honestly about the side effects, because they often cause men to stop treatment too early.
Absolutely. Things like headache, nausea, restlessness, and critically for many men, sexual problems. Reduced libido, difficulty with orgasm.
These have to be communicated immediately to the doctor.
They do, because often a switch in medication can alleviate the issues without stopping treatment altogether. But the sources are very clear on this. The risks of untreated major depression, which can result in death, loss of livelihood, total relationship destruction, far outweigh the risks of taking supervised antidepressant medication.
And abruptly stopping the medication is also extremely dangerous.
It is. It can cause withdrawal symptoms and must always be managed by a doctor, usually over a course of 6 to 12 months once the patient is completely stabilized.
Okay, so that's medication. The next tool is psychotherapy, or talk therapy.
The sources highlight 3 main effective approaches here. The most popular and often fastest approach for men is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
And why is that one so effective for men?
Because it's highly structured, it's goal-oriented, and it focuses on behavioral activation before emotional insight. Instead of starting with, how do you feel? It starts with, what did you do, what did you think, and how can we change that action?
So it's very practical.
Very. It teaches patients to recognize the cycle. A situation leads to a thought, which leads to a feeling, which leads to an action. If a man feels angry and lashes out, CBT immediately targets the thought that triggered the anger and teaches him a new, measurable behavioral response.
What about the other types?
Another option is interpersonal therapy, or IPT. That focuses on solving relationship problems that might be causing or worsening the depression.
Which makes sense, since male depression often shows up as relationship friction, like with Mark and Sarah.
Exactly. And the third is problem-solving therapy, which is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It helps men identify specific life stressors that feel overwhelming and breaks them down into solvable, manageable components. Very appealing to men who see themselves as fixers.
There's also a more integrated solution mentioned, collaborative care.
Yes, this is gaining a lot of traction. It's a system where physical and behavioral health care are seamlessly combined. The primary care doctor, the therapist, and the psychiatrist all work as a coordinated team.
And the benefit there for men seems obvious.
It's significant because they're already predisposed to visiting their primary care physician for those somatic complaints, the headache, the chest pain.
So instead of being dismissed, the doctor is trained to screen for depression and can immediately connect the patient with behavioral health support right there in the same system.
It removes that massive barrier of having to make a separate, stigmatized mental health appointment. It treats the mind and body as they should be treated holistically.
And for the most severe cases, the material mentions brain stimulation therapies.
Yes, for severe, non-responsive, or acutely suicidal cases. This is for the most severe end of the spectrum. ECT, or electroconvulsive therapy, is still regarded as the gold standard for severe, life-threatening depression that has failed to respond to anything else.
It has a controversial reputation, but it's highly effective.
It is, and very safe when administered professionally. A less invasive option is TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation, which uses magnetic fields to stimulate nerve cells in the brain. It's often used when medication trials have been only partially successful.
And finally, beyond the clinical options, there are practical self-help strategies, the smaller commitments that start rebuilding momentum.
These are crucial, things like a commitment to increase physical activity. Even light exercise is proven to help mild to moderate depression.
Breaking up large, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable steps.
Right, to reestablish a sense of agency and efficacy. And maintaining stable daily routines, depression thrives on chaos and isolation.
So eating and sleeping at the same time every day provides necessary structure.
And finally, rigorously avoiding alcohol and excessive drug use, which, as we said, offer temporary relief, but dramatically worsen the depressive architecture of the brain over time.
The ultimate realization that Mark had, and the one that we hope resonates profoundly with you, is this. Beneath the mask you've worn for so long that you forgot it was a mask, beneath the exhaustion and the irritation, there exists a version of you who laughs easily.
A version of you who loves freely, who sleeps peacefully.
He is not gone. He is simply waiting.
He's waiting for you to recognize that the anger you feel is not the definition of your character. It is the most primal voice of your wounded self, desperately asking for care and intervention.
It's a symptom, not a sentence.
Exactly.
Asking for help isn't weakness. It is the bravest thing you will ever do. It is the act of a responsible man, a man who knows his family deserves the real him, not the angry, exhausted ghost he has become. We deeply need your voice and your experience to continue this conversation and expand our understanding. So please, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This engagement will help us improve greatly on this journey with you. And remember to subscribe to Enchanted Life Inside to catch up on the latest situations and stories, allowing us to continue to unpack these complex truths. I look forward to seeing you again soon, exploring more of these ordinary things that happen every day, but are, well, very much worth thinking about. What no one tells you about male depression. Thanks, everyone. My name's Eli, Eli. See you next time.